And there we are. Good morning.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Great. Good to
That's
be
great.
here.
Again, right? So
Again,
we've tried it
exactly.
before, isn't it? So the last time we had a little bit of technical issues. This time we won't have them. We are prepared, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, we will talk about career today, mindset, the necessary mindset shift that people need to bring with them in order to actually make a change out there, right? And making a change isn't that easy. So for me personally, it is a little bit of it was an adventure for myself to do that, a hard one, with a lot of ups and downs. And I still see the same patterns for so many people outside there who really struggle with exactly doing that. And yeah, so first of all, maybe give us a little bit of an introduction how you see these things and who you are, so that everyone does have a full picture of what we're going to do and why you are the person people should go to actually get help because of that one. I would like to start in the beginning with that, because many people think that this is just a kind of conversation. Yes, it is, but there is a purpose behind that we make the conversation. So please give us a little bit of an introduction. Why do you think that that's an issue out there?
Yeah. Yeah. So, of course, first and foremost, as you can see, my name is Diana Enache. I am signing in from Bucharest, Romania. And one of the roles that I have is that of a coach, and I focus on mindset work with people for career growth and for career change. So, you said the word change, that's kind of instrumental to what I do, to the work that I do with people. And what I help millennials, most of the time it's millennials that I work with, high achievers who work in tech, is to get rid of perfectionism and other forms of self sabotage. And we'll talk about that more going into this conversation,
Looking forward.
to obtain so that they obtain meaningful growth in their careers and meaningful change. Change is a tricky one. And the change that I'm specifically helping people achieve is either a career pivot, so a change to a different role, but that has something in common with what you used to do. Basically, a career transition, which is
Hmm.
going for a very different role, a radically different role, or the move from employee to becoming a freelancer or a solopreneur, or changing in the form of preparing for promotion. Those are the types of changes that I've dealt with myself, that I've helped other people achieve, and that I still do, and that energize me quite a lot. And yeah, change, sometimes we can make it ourselves, we can do it. Some other times it's more complicated than, I don't know, changing from a provider, at home, a provider to another. That sort of change, that's manageable. When we think about change in the terms that I'm referring to, or even a career pivot or a career transition, some people can do that on their own. They might not need help. But when we introduce this element of mindset and
Hmm.
these mental gremlins, as I like to call them, then help is a good thing to have. Help from an uh, perspective, from a specialist. It could be a coach, it could be a mentor, it could be a therapist. Yeah,
All at the same time
someone.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes, yeah. And just to have a different, set of eyes and ears on challenge, or yeah, issue that someone is dealing with. And when I say mental gremlins, I note and work most with this tendency towards perfectionism and some other self-sabotage for on, but most of the time it's perfectionism, which is
What
this
I,
suit. Yeah.
what I really like is that you call it saboteurs. So I'm in
Mm-hmm.
the more generalized version of resistance. So for me, the term was coined by Stephen Pressfield. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a German term for that actually, but I'm not using it because there's no English equivalent for that. So resistance is um, an entity, so it's a capital R resistance. And actually, the idea of resistance, how I'm using it, is incorporating all the saboteurs I saw on your posts, which was very interesting. So you really name specific saboteurs to probably to engage and tackle them specifically. And that is one of the core foundations. What I learned for myself is that if you don't name things, if you don't manifest them, right, as entities, you won't be able to attack them. You won't be able to understand them and see them coming. So you won't be able to react.
Yeah.
So in Stoicism, you wouldn't be able to make an intervention. So you can't intervene in which you don't know exists, right? So you need to understand that this issue, it is not I am a perfect person. You are not, right? You try to be perfect, which is impossible, and you try the impossible, which is in the no control zone. So you waste energy, right? Instead of focusing on what you can. So I really like that one. One question up front, because as a little bit of an icebreaker moment, I see a lot of posts these days about, now it happened, I got laid off. Now I need to start finding. So that's the good version of it. The bad version is when people go and say, I have lost my job, blame the society, blame the employer. So why it was me? So I did everything my whole life for this company. Is that a correct mindset? Is that a correct reaction? So what would have been the correct reaction? And what exactly is it what you would suggest people should do in that moment instead?
Yeah, that's a very good one. And it's very current because I see a lot of that as well. A lot of that on LinkedIn specifically and in conversations with people that these layoffs. First off, it's natural that it's disruptive, especially when we don't expect it, in terms of, some thoughts that come with it, some feelings and emotions that come with it. So just to give a hint to the solution, it's a good idea to process those, you said, become aware and work through them, right? Because you then don't get stuck in them and in this mental loop of poor me, right? And then what you said about this second version of posts and interactions that you come across, that sounded to me like the victim saboteur. And the victim saboteur, just to lean into this a little bit, because there are many saboteurs, 10 to be precise, but this is just the victim saboteur is this voice, a part of us, a voice in our heads that says of things. Oh, the market, oh, the employers, oh, it's someone else's or something else's fault, but my own. That's the kind of lens looks at the world through. So they then avoid to take responsibility for things. And that's not healthy. Of course, you can vent a little bit when unfortunate happens and unpleasant happens. Just don't stay stuck in it. That's the path people take. Okay, feel your feelings, process those in the moment. But if you're there 6 months later, that's not a healthy.
No, it's not.
So I would.
So I know that. No,
Go ahead.
No, I know that children in children education, there is a technique where you have these little monsters and you are allowed to throw things against these monsters, right? What I like about that is it is a mechanism to relieve stress or stress balls, these kinds of things, right in the moment when it happens. So you learn how to tackle with it. What I don't like is that there is no follow-up regarding that. So people stick with I just need to vent off. I need to just, that this is accessing energy instead of really getting things into control and reflecting from that and say, why was I that upset? Why do I have these feelings of regret or these kind of things? What can I do about that? How do I get into this, into acceptance?
What can I do? An excellent question. The why that
no one is teaching that.
Yeah. But then, okay, once we have the explanation, we can marinate in those thoughts over and over. But this question of what can I do about it is just to, or other people who are exposed to these situations, to start thinking about options, to start thinking about solutions, to start getting out of that state.
So to get into the main topics of this saboteurs, but perfectionism, we want to talk about growth mindset, meaningful work, and mid-career change. That's the main topics. And now to get basically into that one, with what would you start? So making a change, understanding that I'm in the situation where, so most of the people won't wake up in the morning and say, I need to change something about my life because everything is great right now. I feel awesome. Let's change my life. It is not like that.
Yeah.
Most often it's like when something is good, it stays good and we become more procrastinating than ever, right? So it is a little bit like that is the addiction of success leads to actually decline of success, which is most often that's a little bit like the weird thing about us humans. So we have a tendency to homeostasis, which means that we always have the tendency to go back to our baseline. So if we are extremely unhappy, we have the tendency to go back to baseline. If we are extremely happy, we have the tendency to go back to normal. The problem, I think, with burnout is the exhaustion lets you linger more in the space of exhaustion than homeostasis. And burnout is the state where you don't really get into homeostasis again. And but the same is true to extreme addictions where you have dopamine kicks, right? And you don't get really to homeostasis again because you have the time, you have the money to play all day long computer games, to drink alcohol all day long, all these kind of things, which gives you this sense of whatever you need there, right? And don't get back to the homeostasis you should be, right? And then comes the point when you get pulled back into homeostasis, and that is the moment when you realize, oh my God, something happened to me, right? I got laid off. These moments pull you back, these emotional triggers, right? And I think that is the wrong, but it is how things are. It was for me as well. So it's not like I'm a holy person here. So we learned already we need to do that as early as possible. How would you start it as early as possible? So what are the first steps? What you would do if you have the sense something's not wrong, is not right in my life. I need to change something. What would you suggest the person to start with doing?
So ideally, I'm thinking about this situation where someone has a challenge or starts to notice that challenge rather. So I think the first step or the first point would be to notice if someone thinks about the same negative automatic thoughts over and over for a while, for, I don't know, a few weeks or a month or two. And when we start, or they start seeing this pattern and recognizing the same types of thoughts, being unfulfilled, feeling demotivated, feeling that they're not good enough or not doing enough, some examples. Those are some examples. Then, if that repeats over time and you haven't done anything about it, that's a good place to start seeking some. When we get out of our own head and we start talking about these things, insights can happen. We can process what we in our heads. And I've had clients that have said multiple times over time that, oh, it's so good to talk about these things, to hear my things. That's one. And then the other is, in my head, these problems are bigger, but when I talk about them, they seem approachable, or they seem like I can do something about them, which is great. But you have to, you need to do something, start talking about it, right? And then realize, oh, actually, I might have some options here. So patterns, recognizing the same types of feelings, the same types of thoughts over and over again, unpleasant and bring dissatisfaction, that would be a good. And of course, I wouldn't necessarily recommend someone work with a coach or a mentor or a therapist from the first thought, right? I have it once, then I need to go and work with someone. Maybe some of these things, as I said initially, we can solve. Great. We want that in coaching, at least, which is a finite process. We want clients to be autonomous as much as possible so that when we end our coaching process, they can handle those things themselves. So they see progress and they're able to take action in the direction they want. We don't want to be years and years. That's a different, really, coaching is a different type of psychotherapy, for example, from that regard. And about setting goals and achieving goals. That's a very specific thing with coaching. So yeah, I would say that. So of something unfortunate or something dissatisfying is happening in my life, I have a problem or I have an issue, right? And then I go to seek help. There might be situations, and I've worked with people like that want to prepare for something. And they want to, again, talk about this challenge, for example, a promotion or a role change or something like that. And they want to create a plan. I was talking to someone just yesterday, and they said, I want to have a plan. I want to know what I'm going to be doing. I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z thing in their career, in their profession, and then make a switch professionally. So preparing for something, good avenue to work with a specialist, a mentor or a coach, I would say more specifically in this case. And I want to obtain something. If I'm seeking to obtain this goal, it can be positive as well, not just people coming mentoring from a problem. They can come from a baseline of, I'm here and I want to be here. High achieving, that would be ideal. And then let's work on how you get from here to here. And we'll see if there are blockers between the A state and the B and work through them. But the initial conversation or the drive towards coaching and mentoring is, I want to obtain something, not I want to get rid of a problem. So those are kind of valences.
What would be the first action? So that, you have this is the spark. So there is the spark that I need to do something. There is that cannot work like that forever. Like Steve Jobs said, when you take a look into the mirror for basically every day and see the same thing in the mirror, you need to change something about it, right? And that's the spark. What is the first action? So we learned that coaching is probably not the first action if you are in the very beginning of that journey for the first time. What would you do?
I would research if I were in that situation, and I've been in that situation. I would research. So I would go out and find resources that I could read blog articles, I could listen to podcasts, I could read books, I could talk to friends who are in that situation that I want to be in, for example. So use my network combined with the resources that I have. And online, we have so many resources these days. And then I figure that I can, manage. If I'm successful on my own, that's great. If there are things, blockers in my way with the information, even with the research, even with the conversations with friends, family, whatever, I'm still not doing what I'm still not getting where I want to be getting, then next step would be researching for working with a specialist. Let's put it broadly like that. And again, we have so many resources online. We have access to people across Europe, across the world. It's easy to work with people. And I have with people from like Australia and Canada to Romania. So yeah, that would be step one or level one, and then level two, working with someone. Or if you figure out quickly that, all these things that I'm doing are not, working in my favor, again, then research and approach someone or ask for a recommendation. Recommendations work great for psychotherapy, for coaching. Yeah.
That's actually a very good thing. So you really need to get into things and need to start to learn about these things. I think understanding is one of the key elements. If you don't understand the thing, you can't see it, you don't recognize the pattern, you don't see it as a threat to you. So, or an opportunity. So, depending on how you see it. At first, it's of course a threat, but on some point in time, it becomes an opportunity for you if you say, I want to change. What helps me to understand what it is journaling. So I'm a big journaler. So I right now have my journal. I have digital version. I was streaming about this, and I have a manual version. I actually do with my bare hands with writing things down, and that helps me because I commit to something in the morning and I reflect in the evening. That is mandatory for my life. By doing that, I have a good overview of how I performed and where I actually wanted to go. So I see that I'm going into that direction. This is my signal. This is my potential. Have I moved? What were the obstacles? What, in your case, saboteurs, was I facing? So I need to write them down. And I need to say that tomorrow, my thing for tomorrow is not to fall prone to that saboteur again, right? To actually make a change. This, in my opinion, you can do without help. You can just do that, even though you might be a little lost sometimes because it's overwhelming. You might miss a lot of patterns. And this is, I think, a good moment where a mentor is actually a good thing, or a coach. It depends on what you want to do. As you said, a mentor is more a passive reflection help, while a coach is more an active intervening help. Some call it a system. I don't think coaching is good with compared with systems. Coach is more like a person next to you during the day, while the mentor is with you, supporting that you can go through the day. And sometimes people can be both for you, so it's a little bit like it's the overlap. But I think you should. And when I mentorings, what I really like working with people when they already prepare themselves. So it's not like going into a session and asking like, yeah, so what's on your mind today? I don't know. It's actually all good. And after 5 minutes, you realize nothing is good. But he was getting into the conversation like, everything is good. No, that's a saboteur in that moment. It's the voice again, resistance telling you, all is good, right? No, it's not. It's absolutely not good. So let's talk about
the avoider saboteur.
The avoider. Let's explain a little bit. So I'm not using the terminology saboteur a lot, so I'm adopting that right now from you. Explain what is the avoider.
As the name states, it's quite easy, I would say easy to understand. It's, again, a part of one of the saboteurs that people can have, a part of our thinking and feeling and behaving. It comes with this tendency to avoid conflict, to avoid certain situations, certain people, saying it's all good when we not, just to not get into that painful work, or messy work. That could be an example of how to go up. It's all good. It's all good. Actually, I don't want to deal with this right now. And I might avoid it today. I might avoid it in a week, and so on. And again, it becomes a pattern. So that's the simple translation of the avoider.
Okay, so the avoider is basically the foundation procrastinator.
It could be that procrastination shows up here. It can shows up with perfectionism, which in the saboteur language is called stickler. So there are multiple. This is just one type of behavior. It's not just assigned to one and that's it. It could show up in multiple places. It could show up, for example, pleaser saboteur, as I'm taking care of myself. I'm more so leaning to take care of others and paying attention. So that becomes like a procrastination mechanism to look at my needs and what I, need to care for myself, because I do it for other people. And I, again, don't do it this week, don't do it next week, don't go to the doctor, for example, if I actually have an ache or a pain. I don't know, the kids need something,
a minor help for someone who could help himself, but I'm actually procrastinating to not do the thing I actually hate to do. Or not hate to do, it's like I like the version how Stephen Pressfield was pointing it out. It's like the things you are most afraid of are normally the things which have the strongest signal for your potential, which means a strong signal for potentials triggers an emotional reaction. The reaction is triggered by the own resistance, which is one or a set of saboteurs kicking in and saying, no, I don't want to. And the interesting part is that can even happen. And I see that on a regular basis. Like I see it on meetings for parents in the kindergarten, these kind of things. There are so many people like saying nothing, and one person says something which is going straight in the energy-saving procrastination zone, how we should solve something as parents, and everyone jumps in saying, yes, that's a great idea, let's not do something. It's a little bit like there is a social component to it where the saboteurs of multiple minds can join together to actually create a wall of resistance, so that we actually get into that. That's another phenomenon I need to really get into it, because that's one of the things when I coach teams, I see that very often. People are silent, and it's depending on who is saying something. If the alpha person who tries to keep the status quo, that's often a typical avatar in the team, if that happens, the team is very hard to motivate, because as soon as this person says something, everyone tries to not do something. And there is the other person who tries to do something about it. And if that person isn't able to see this, even to see that pattern, do something about the pattern, or be rhetorical strong enough to actually change something in a situation, you are prone to fail. And that is what I call basically the teamed up resistance, right? So there is a group version of it as well. And it's just working when we see others are saying this, we just adopt and say, yeah, I'm with that. So it feels, this resistance feels stronger when others are saying, yeah, no, we are right. But in reality, that's just group procrastination in that moment.
Yeah, position. Yeah, sure. And I would add here, as you said, if it's the leader or the perceived, or even that person, they're not the formal leader, if they're the informal leader, then others might say, yeah, let's go with what he said or what she said. And then this opposition, exactly group opposition is created.
We basically borrow the credibility of something else to strengthen the position we try to achieve based on resistance, right? We can basically do the very same if we want to go towards something, and say, no, we actually need to go towards the potential. Let's do this. That's the vice versa. But humans are much easier tempted by resistance and the saboteurs. And we all know that no matter how good and successful we were yesterday, in the morning, we would love to stay in bed a little bit longer, right? And that is the first thing in the morning which says hello to you is your own resistance. It's not your potential, right? Sometimes maybe, but in most cases, it's this little voice in your head, start to negotiate very early on to, just lay down,
Yeah, I recognize it too.
Now 300 days in a row, and you're still there, right? The most relentless thing in your life is your own resistance. That's the reason why we need to have discipline to fight it every day, right? So we had perfectionism now. You were talking about fixed and growth mindset. So give the audience, if possible, please, a little bit of an overview. What is a fixed mindset? How do we detect it? What's the pattern? And what would be a growth mindset?
Just to pull it back a little bit, let's look at what mindset is, and then getting into fixed and growth. So mindset is this way of thinking and feeling. So your attitudes, your beliefs, your perceptions form your mindset, mine, yours, everyone else's mindset. It's this lens or filter, let's say, through which we see the world. And we have then particular associations or expectations that feed into our mindset. Okay, so then from that, we can have this continuum from fixed to growth mindset. Fixed mindset is rather rigid, where someone can say, I'm either good at this or I'm not, for example. where they believe that their abilities, their capabilities are fixed. They can't do much about them. That's fixed mindset. On the other end of this continuum, we have growth mindset, which is this attitude of curiosity, of flexibility, of people believing that they can learn, they can develop with effort, with experience. And we as people are kind of a mix of the two. We can have a growth mindset in one area of our life and a rather fixed one in another area of our life. Rarely do we find extreme whole life growth mindset and whole life fixed mindset sort of examples of people. And here, just to kind of complete this idea around mindset, I can recommend a book to people who are listening and people who are going to be listening to the recording as well, which is called Mindset, just one word. And it's written by Carol Dweck. And there, she's the person that coined this term, the fixed and growth mindset. She explains and gives examples and shows from like children in school to adults how these fixed and growth mindsets work, and describes and explains them and gives ideas of how we can move from one to the other. My experience has been with my own kind of like moving from fixed to growth in certain areas of my life. The best results I've had with moving to growth mindset from fixed mindset was through psychotherapy and coaching. So I can give this lived experience and I can give the experience of the coach working with clients, that this relationship, the dynamic, the relationship, the talking about things, the challenging, the way we think, the finding options and solutions, and, finding more than one ideally, and then choosing and doing all these steps kind of fall into these instruments or are encompassed by these instruments and help. Of course, we can do things on our own. As you mentioned, the journaling in this can be one useful tool that we can do ourselves, of course. And yeah, or even pairing it with journaling, with mentoring, with therapy. But yeah, that's the idea with the fixed and the growth.
I think it's always the combination, right? So the growth mindset, if we boil it down, it becomes to, I want to create a state of my mind where I want to grow every day a little bit. So journaling helps me understand, did I make progress? So was there something, or I like to call it like that, was there something I could brag about today?
Yeah.
So for myself,
Yeah.
but not public, for myself.
Yeah.
Is there something I could say, oh, that was really good today? So I really went the extra mile on that one. And that was, I wasn't expecting that. I was afraid of that. I was doing it no matter what, right? And that is a growth. That is a little bit, actually, that was growth. That was adding up to that.
Yeah.
That was a compounding effect. Even though it might not be something you post about, because it's not like, wow, what a great achievement, but the small achievements for you every day, which means something to you, right? On your path, those are making the difference. And if you don't see them, and if you can't make them visible to you, you will be overwhelmed by the many negative versions. So there are, especially in the modern society, in the digital age, we have a lot of emotions triggered, for example, by pseudo-successful persons on LinkedIn and Substack who say that I'm, look like the most, I don't know, successful person I've ever saw. Then you start talking to them and realize, actually not. But in the first moment you saw the person, you saw a person who is, so much more than you are, and you have a lot of emotional reaction to that. And that drags you down for no reason. So you shouldn't compare yourself with that person in the first place, but you should understand where I am right now and what I have achieved to get better. If you see that, you see the actual success and the actual problems you have, and not the problems in a relation to a person which you don't know. The reality is just made up. It's in just in the matrix, right? And then
again,
you make
filters.
Yeah, filter that out. So it's like it's waste. So in Stoicism, it would be the circle of no control. You would just waste energy. in that moment
Mm-hmm.
by comparing to other people, because the other people have other problems you don't know about, right? And you
Yeah.
only see the positive things because you think you lack positive things. So take a look what positive things you have done and
Mm-hmm.
focus on them. And that is something you can be grieving a little bit about and saying, oh, I've done nothing good, let's change this tomorrow. So accept the fact that you haven't done something good today and change it tomorrow. That is what you can do.
Yeah.
You are in progress, and in my opinion, that is the growth aspect. It is staying in progress, or as Tony Robinson famously said, progress equals happiness. As long as you are in
Mm.
that progress, you are happy, even though there is no dopamine happy state, but this state of I have no issues. That is actually happiness, right?
Yeah. Well, I would define it, my own version of happiness, just to touch on this, is being content in the present moment. And when we talk about dopamine and achieving or pursuing goals, we do get releases of dopamine in anticipation of something. And if we achieve the thing that we set out to achieve and it's the way we expected it to, then there's less dopamine than in anticipation of that thing. If the result we have is better than what we expected, or let's take this example, if it's better than what we expected, we get a surge. If it's worse, then it's a dip, right? So, and that is called a prediction error. We might predict that we get to this point and we get to this point. Yay, great, amazing. Or we might predict we get to this point and we get to this point. Then the frustration, sadness, whatever can ensue after.
Well,
But
it
yeah,
will be there.
we
It will
went
be
on a
there.
tangent.
Yeah. Okay. Meaningful work would be the next big topic. So people say that we have that in team conversations often with CTOs, that my people filled out a questionnaire, right? There's something about how they feel about their goals, feels so artificial and surreal. So it's like all the goals the company sets for you doesn't even make sense.
Mm,
You don't know what that means. You don't understand the patterns. It feels like just words on the wall, a little bit like that,
yeah.
but you don't really know how to get there. They bombard you in the same moment with deadlines, and they expect you to grow your mindset and change it, become a more effective person. And you try, and the entire energy is focused on surviving. So that doesn't feel meaningful. That is very often on the edge, on the verge of
Yeah.
survival instead of actually growth. So there is no growth mindset for the people. The problem is that there is no leadership. There's management managing
Mm-hmm.
exactly that system, and not a person who shields the team and says, okay, we can do that, but now the team needs to have time for this, right? So we need to remove
Yeah.
deadlines. We need to let the team decide when they want to release something, when they need to release something, ownership, these kind of things. So that's another topic. But that would be in the direction of what people tell me they don't work. They just have work
Mm,
based on an external agenda. They just
yeah.
need to fulfill the ticket criteria. What would be the to get into meaningful work that you actually work and say, great, it's Monday again?
Mm. First off, I would say identify what it means for you. What does meaningful work mean? And what are the criteria of meaningful work? Because we have different descriptions of meaningful work, and it's fine. It's great. And then potentially in the workspace, look for activities that fulfill the criteria of what meaningful work means. Can I do any of these? Do I have the option to do any of these in my current role? And then, start seeking. That's a good idea to first look where you are for these opportunities. And if not, in time, potentially move to another place, move somewhere else where you can actually do those things. And if I go a bit deeper into how I see meaningful work, not what, but how, it's the type of work that we enjoy doing while we're doing the work itself. We feel fulfilled or we feel in flow with the work. Those are examples of, oh, yeah, that's actually meaningful for me. That gives me energy. Another way of saying it, that gives me energy while I'm doing the work, and maybe also gives me energy for other activities that I can do outside of that work. That to me is like the ultimate sign of, yeah, this is meaningful work. This is good work that I'm doing. It energizes me for other things in my life as well. And I strive and I work with people to get there as well. It can be that you feel fulfilled after doing that thing that you've done. That also is an element, in my view, of meaningful work. And it also, meaningful work to me means it serves a purpose. I know why I'm doing this thing. It could be internal, it could be combo, internal, external, that I'm like serving something, a client, or something that happens in the company. And it also takes effort, meaningful work. It doesn't mean it's easy and it's like, yeah, I'm doing it automatically. It's on autopilot. No, it can take effort and it can take time, and that's okay. What it's not, I think it's not necessarily, as I said, easy. It's not necessarily fast, also not automatic, and also not necessarily all about money. Because initially I said it's like fulfilling work in and of itself. That's how I see meaningful work. I'm curious about your view of it.
I had yesterday a thing I want to talk about it. So a little bit as an example.
Mm-hmm.
I was running yesterday. It wasn't so we have spring, so it feels like spring again. So I was running. Actually, I'm running every day. But the interesting part is when I go for a run, let's say the noise in the head clears a little bit. So, there's a lot of tension going on. There are a lot of things going on about your work, and sometimes even frustration. So I was a little bit frustrated when I started to run. There was several things not working the way I would like them to have worked. And this is the moment where I get very emotional. That's one of the reasons I'm very reflective, to actually get that in line again. So I want to stay in control over that while I'm a very emotional person. And while, let's say, in the second half of the run, I had so many little visions and ideas about things, how to move on again, how to actually improve what I'm doing at work right now, which is mainly about AI coaching right now, just to solve some very complex issues which are basically unsolved right now. And that's one of the things which bothers me a little bit right now, right? So it's a little bit like a lot to do with, let's say, problems on the market, how people actually are, technical abilities, those kind of things. And I really had the solution for that on my mind after having a conversation for more than 45 minutes with myself. And I was so fulfilled afterwards, because I was using my free time to actually do something for my work, which showed me that the emotional trigger before, the emotional trigger after that one, while staying mostly in control in that process, showed me that I am working towards my potential. And the grief I had before that was based that I see my potential, but I don't get away to. I had a feeling of stallment, but it was something that mattered to me, because the thing matters to me, right? So
it matters to you. Yeah, that's
exactly.
very
So
well put.
the fight and the spending time, I could spend the time listening to music or whatever, right? But I was spending the time on keeping working on that problem, because that is something which really goes deep for me, right? That really fulfills me. And after that, I was writing things down, and I keep working on that one today again. And that shows me that there is a continuous cycle of improvement where I have ups and downs. And those ups and downs define my day, but they are so integral for me that without them, I would just stall and procrastinate all day long. So, being stalled doesn't feel like procrastination. It feels like a signal that I need to move. And that is for me something where I say, if I don't have the feeling that I'm going to work and I have a mission to do that, it's not meaningful for me at all. That's my version of it.
Nice. Thank you for painting the picture, for giving the concrete example. And yeah, I really liked what you said about this matters to me. That's another signal of what or how you could identify meaningful work. To me, one of the best examples that I can give is when I'm in a coaching session with a client. The way, the reward that I feel, the flow that I'm in, the presence that I'm in with that person, the curiosity that I have for whatever's going on with them. Those are signals that give me the energy, even when I don't feel all that well physically, because I've had those moments throughout these years of doing it. Then I get into the conversation, I prepare for the session, I get into the conversation with the person, I work through whatever we need to work through, and then at the end I feel better. Even if I am not the focus of the conversation, I feel better because I was doing this, I was contributing, I was connecting with someone, all those things. And also, to me, this meaningful work is also connected to my values. It ticks a big portion of the top that I have. And even if it's like facilitation or coaching or consulting, all in all, these types of activities, they well with the values that I have. That could also be a signal. Oh yeah, that's meaningful work. It's connecting well with my value. If it's like friction over and over in time, then that work might not be aligned with that person's values, and something needs to change.
Sometimes that happens in mentorings. There are people you don't really get warm with, and mentorings and coaching stop on some time because there is no connection. There are people who cannot connect with each other. I'm a believer of that. I know my own experience, but I know exactly what you mean. So I had a phone call this morning, and someone else told me that since we talk about that in this way, so referring to stoicism, self-discipline, conversations, I'm now more stable, and I see that people responding to me in a much better way. So I get what I actually want. I have no conflicts anymore, these kind of things. I am thinking about problems before I get it, so I'm better prepared. I am calmer. I'm not emotionally driven. And that gives me, that's a little bit, that's for my brag book, actually. That's a little section. I'm normally not talking about this, but now that is something I write down as a brag. Why? Because that is a signal that worked. And that worked is based on the energy I was putting into that issue. That is for me meaningful work. So not for the one thing was my software development thing, creating AI coaches, and the other is I help people personally. I create content. I'm talking about things. We're doing that right now, and all this is service, right, to help other people, and that fills me, right? That is nothing I just do for likes on LinkedIn, because you would be very unhappy when it's very unhappy about that. So there's no practice on this will exist to actually cope with that emotion, right? No, but it is like it is exactly like that. I think everyone needs to find that for them in the modern world, because we are not living in a medieval era or industrial age where purpose is defined for you by where you were born, in what family you grow up. These kind of things were predefining your life, actually. So purpose wasn't a big thing you were thinking about. If you were the son of a blacksmith, you were the blacksmith of the town. You weren't the miller now or something like that. It's like, but this is not like it is today. Today it's like the schooling system, the educational system is so old school that it doesn't prepare you at all. So you have a typical break when you're around or getting in an adulthood. You are suddenly confronted with purpose, right? Like the school system is still teaching you to learn something and practice that for the rest of your life, but not really. And then you get into life and you simply don't understand what's going on there. And I think
very different picture.
It is. So in my opinion, the entire education system doesn't make sense anymore, maybe until 7th or 8th grade, but from then on, it doesn't really serve a purpose anymore. And it is extremely important to find your purpose, because just getting a job to make your living isn't purpose. That is just survival. And that's a situation. You are following an external agenda. And if most doing that, you have a crippled society which is telling lies to itself all day long, because they try to cope with it as a society. So yeah, this is how things go. No, it is not. You could change something about it, but you simply don't do that. And you see that in every conversation people do. When you have deep conversations about self-change, you have 5 people commenting, maybe on a good day, and you have some nonsense topic about nonsense news media, blah, 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 and everyone is writing, comments after comments after comments in which is clearly a state of procrastination. There is no change. It is just entertainment, and it's feeling like I have done something, I have commented, now I'm great. So that is the result of having no purpose. So you can be sure that most people doing this, and I'm no offense here, but this is just a thing, a clear pattern which emerged over years now for me, is that the people who are in that state, first of all, are pretty much not coachable. They are not mentorable. They actually don't really seek someone to help them. And if you would tell them something, or even ask a question, so not really stating, but just asking questions, they would fight you. In that moment, ego would jump you in the face. The first thing you know about the person is their name and their saboteur, right? Because they greet you. It's like, hello, no, go away. It's a little bit like that.
Go away,
and that's what I see. And that is the reason why I'm talking about that, because, I want to but I want to influence the way how, for example, my children grow up into a world and understand it better. So that's one of my goals. They are pretty young still, but it will be a thing in the next decade, right, for them, where they need to understand the world before they actually get confronted with it, because I wasn't at all. So I wasn't just thrown into a apprenticeship, was expecting to go into a journeymanship and live there for the rest of my life, which I have not done. But there were so many wasted years in between what I'm actually supposed to do. And it was obvious what I was supposed to do, but no one was caring about that. And I don't want to blame anyone right now, because it is done, right? But it is a learning. So I need to keep it for myself to understand how it was for me, and I can improve that for my children. And that is the reason I'm saying this out loud. I was writing an article about why I'm calling myself a Stoic, because Stoics actually don't call themselves Stoics. The point is, I want to start to break this pattern. And this is the reason I start to get my internals out, to help the people, to give them an understanding of, okay, you can have purpose. It must not be my purpose. You need to find your own purpose, but you need to start what you define with growth mindset. You need to make a change. You can have something you live for. You don't need to stick where you are and then be confronted with layoffs, and suddenly you need to change, which is nothing else than, in the end, writing CVs to the next company, go into this very same journey, different color, right? And that is what I think people should learn. That I told that to a mentee, to a CTO as well, is, I think, a very important aspect. No matter if you make it with a team or not, no matter if you make a change here with management and everything, if you can do something which no CTO in your position was able to do before, right? No matter the result, you will be a stronger person no matter where you are in the future. It's like when you start to make a change, you grow, and no one will take that away. So I just refer now to Epictetus, a very famous Stoic next to Marcus Aurelius, who was a slave and later become a teacher, right? A free person. And that person, no matter the circumstances, was always working on growing, working on becoming a better version while accepting the external circumstances. So you are in a job right now. And
that takes me, makes me think about Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning. Similar kind of, he was in a dreadful situation and made some meaning out of it. And he could survive, go on and live his life and write the book and do therapy and so on, logotherapy. I think it's translated similarly in English as it sounds in Romanian. Yeah, so finding meaning or making meaning, depending on the situation. But because I was saying initially, right, when we started this meaning conversation, you can define it for yourself and then search. If you can find elements of it where you are right now, you make meaning at work, for example, in your current situation. If not, change. Yeah, but go from like finding to making meaning happen. And also, from what you said earlier, I have a similar personal example of working in different roles throughout years of my experience that I adapted to, that I was kind of not conditioned into, but educated, influenced into. Yeah, that's a better word. Influenced into, that I adapted to, that I was good at. And it took a while to start cracking this nut of what do I really want to be doing? What really gives me purpose? How can I build that thing? Yeah, it's going to be painful, but it's going to be worth it, and so on and so forth. And I started going on that journey when I was 30. I'm 36 now. It takes a while. It's not
I
something
think
that happens
it
overnight.
never really ends, right?
Yeah, it never
So
really ends, but like defining it, at least the first time that I did, I was around 30 when I defined it, and then started to build and work and create something that wasn't there at the time, or some shreds of it were there, but not the whole picture. And I do agree with what you said. And also, connected to this conversation about purpose, about changes, about careers, and so on, I reading repeatedly, I read about this, that right now, in our current world, this element of having the same career or having the same job for years on end, it's not realistic anymore. Someone can have at least 3 careers in their lifetime. It can be different from each other. That's one idea that I would really like for the audience to take home with them. Things change constantly, faster and faster. That happens now. We don't just have one career and one job in one place for you. That can happen still in this world. Rather, the world is now shifting towards multiple careers during our lifetime, and that's okay. And that also can give us opportunity to go for more meaningful
exactly.
or better or more purposeful or whatever, more engaging work from one place to the other, from one role to the other, and so on. That's one element. And then the other element is this, again, because of constant change or due to constant change, however we want to look at it, we need to develop skills, not just being in the square, the constant rigid description, let's say, of a job, but have skills from multiple types of roles and use them in our work, even if it's like entrepreneurial or within a company, being an employee. More and more we're leaning, or the labor market is moving into that direction with AI and with other technologies as well. We can get more efficient at doing some things. So then we need the skills to kind of compensate and move us forward. And that's going to be a competitive advantage, developing skills, human skills, meta competencies, skills with ourselves, our way of thinking, our mindset, our way of feeling, our adaptability, our resilience, grit, and the ability to withstand or tolerate uncertainty. I think that's a big one these days.
You are absolutely hitting the spot right now. I think that was a wonderful wrap up for how the challenge will look like for humans. And we see that already. And I think the AI was the biggest trigger. We already had this fast paced tech world before, right? But suddenly
Yeah.
it skyrockets, right? It changes that fast that even the creators of AI, people who really the big tech, is not really knowing what's going on right now. They're just assuming and investing. And you see this huge resistance, all the saboteurs grouping up and saying, no, AI won't do this and that. And slowly but steady, it takes away a lot of things and forces you to change. And I think that no matter what people think right now, we are in an age where things change that fast that if you cannot adapt as a human being and you stick too much to the status quo, which we're used to, you will be very likely to be an extremely unhappy person in several years.
Yeah.
That is what I personally think. That is, in the last stream, there was a comment, and I said that I would personally say that I wish that the AI would never have existed. It would be a better world for humans. The AI doesn't improve anything for humanity. It will create an environment where we have the tools to be fast-paced. The problem is the humans have expectations, businesses have expectations, everything has expectations. We are not utopia. We are not a socialistic world. We are a world built, especially in the Western world, built primarily on capitalism. So hedonistic lifestyles, capitalistic lifestyles, that is what will prevail, which means that there will be no technocracy or something like that. There will be no utopia with AI. AI will just speed up the things in which we are right now. So there's more stress, there's more to cope, there is more to digest every day, there is more grief, there is more expectations we cannot live up to. If we cannot make or weren't able to make it before AI will not help us to make it with AI, because there are so many other people who were able before that and are now able with AI 10 times. We need to keep, compete with those people. And that is the issue as well. So I see that already the changes, how many coaches are talking about AI coaching right now. That's interesting. There's so many coaches who are not even making coaching themselves, but they're talking about AI coaching because this is what they listen to. So the people are so afraid of the future that everything they do right now is focusing on what do I need to do to survive. And that is, most people don't really understand. It's not about survival. It is about how do I thrive again, not survive. And that is not a small thing you need to change. Actually, you need to change the entire mind. This is the reason why I think that Stoicism does have such a popularity hit right now, right? Many other things as well, but it is about self-control. It is about not losing yourself when you are steering a ship through a storm which is threatening your life in the ship. That's Stoicism in a nutshell. It is helping you to not lose your mind, right? To not burn out, to not exhaust and fall down. And no matter what happens, you stay in control. And more than ever, this is necessary for a human being in the next decade. I'm 100% sure about that. And this is the reason why everything you said today regarding perfectionism, growth mindset, the initial spark, that you need to accept things, that therapy can be very important to overcome the first hurdles, then go into mentoring, then go into coaching, level up, grow, higher your baseline, that the homeostasis, when you fall back to homeostasis, you fall back to a higher baseline than before. That is the intention of growth. That is more than ever necessary for us to survive as what we think of successful people, happy people, because otherwise we will just be, let's say, a little cog in the system amongst so many others who to fulfill a job. To that the whole machinery is still running. And because not everyone can be the creative person in that world, it's not utopia. And there will be less and less people doing more and more things. That is what happens. And you need to decide for yourself, do you want to be part of them, or will you be the person supporting these people? But then your life becomes less meaningful every day. That is the reality of our mind. If we just follow every day something else, or we don't do anything ourselves, nothing, we will never live a fulfilled life. We will always be dependent on other people. That's the reality.
Yeah, and I argue that is one example, and there are people who live like that, a range in this world. Also, there can be people who can find meaning in supporting others. And that's a different story. If it's intentional,
but it's
if it's
still
deliberate.
creative.
Yeah.
That's still creative. You know, what I mean is that even the support for other people will be demanded much more than it is today. So just helping someone else isn't the thing. You need to help someone else, let's say, in a magnitude than you have done it before. And that is everyone needs to speed up in order to have this new society baseline, which is AI supported. And I think this is what which we will see. And the reason why I think that we as human beings need to understand that the old age is over, and people like you now, right, who is teaching those fundamentals, who's helping people to get into speed and stay in progress, that's more important than ever before. This is what I want to say by that, for basically everyone.
Yeah.
I don't see I just learn or I just go to apprenticeship, journeymanship, and then I go to pension. That was my life. I buy a house, I have a family, all is fine. No, that's not how it works anymore. And that's the reality. Even the supporting people at home needs to be very creative. You know, that's the reality. You can't just have two jobs. You know, that the time where two jobs are enough and you don't need to care about anything else are over as well. Just take a look at the US and the European market. It is not working like that anymore. You need to be more creative. So it does mean that the majority of people will. That's the harsh reality now. I'm predicting, so I need to do that right now. But I think there will be a very harsh future for most of the people, because they don't realize what happened right now, or what happens right now, and what will happen to them if they don't fight their own resistance. Because the biggest enemy was always ourselves, right? And if we don't overcome us right now, we will get into a problematic state, because the world is moving faster, so we cannot just stay there and be blocked by our own hurdles, right?
Yeah. That's well
Sounds
pointed
depressing,
out.
I know.
And you're for these instruments very well.
It is like, so that's you see that in all those mentorings. You see that when you help people. You see I'm writing content now for 8 years, videos, these kind of things. And every time I make a video, it's based on something which happened in real life. I'm not making things up. I'm not that creative. So it's like I have a transcript, I have an idea, a conversation, and I start, my brain is processing that. And this pattern emerged so heavily that the people who are not living up to these standards are pretty much those who are most unhappy. It's like there are mentorings of high-tech people, right? Staff engineers, these kind of things. They only fight for their survival, and they are not capable of getting into the position you just mentioned, like grow. And if you cannot outgrow your position there, you need to change, these kind of things. They are so afraid because of pressure from parents, there are so many pressures that the people are basically they are mortified, that they don't petrified, they don't do anything anymore. They stand there and wait. That's what they do. There are other people who come prepared into a meeting and say, this is what I saw, let's talk about this. And I think, oh, that's great, just let's help you a little bit steer the right direction. So a little bit, oh, this person is even a person motivates me in that moment, right? And you have the persons who are like a stone rock, and you need to pull them, like, hey, this is your journey, why am I pulling you right now? That's not my job as a mentor. So, it's a little bit like, of course you try, but you know exactly as soon as the session is over, that person will stand still again. And that is what I mean. You need to.
Yeah, this example the first example that you gave could be better suited for psychotherapy than mentoring, just to work through those fears and on the being terrified and on getting input from the outside without looking at what I want, what I need, and then when you're out of that, or better than when you started, then you can go into mentoring, and mentoring can be a great propelling instrument you to achieve things, or to learn things, to understand from others' experience and apply, and so on. That's how I would see that situation, or what I would recommend to someone in that situation, that they first work on their inside, in like emotion patterns and states and thoughts and so on, and then go into coaching, mentoring, those sorts of instruments.
Yeah. It's not my goal to create depression here, but it is like, I know it feels a little bit like, for me as well, when I think about that, there is an emotional trigger for me as well. I see the things coming and I try to do something as control, do something about that as good as I can, influence other people to do something about that as well. Because I was growing up in a state where, not in a state, but in a state of mind where I was extremely introverted, just doing my personal things. No one was really caring about anything. You were just, flowing into life, and things worked back then. It was the end of the golden age in Germany, right? Things were working, but suddenly they stopped working, right? And I think that suddenly they stop working, it becomes worse and worse every year. And on some point in time, it is like I would like to work more with people who are, let's say, looking toward their own potential. But if you work with people who don't see any potential anymore, if you say signals, they think of lights or don't know what you mean, right? And the only thing they talk about is, I'm afraid of my manager, I have a conversation, I'm afraid, I need to be prepared, those low-level basic things. And I think I'm the wrong person to prepare you for that. Because what we do here is for your future self in 6 months, not for next week's conversation. I'm not the person giving you some hacks here. I can help you become a better person than you are right now, because I'm, for myself, doing the same. I try to become a better person every day. So I need to accept that I'm not a good person today, and without grief. So not saying, oh, I'm a bad person. I need to be sad about that, or it's like, this is I need to point out what's wrong in order to make it better. I don't want to try to bloomify it and say, oh, that's actually not bad, because then I don't change. That's the reason. You need to be degrade that, so in order to have some form of growth. That's the reality about that. And that is what I would like to see of more people when they get into mentoring, just by doing more self-disciplined things before they get into something. That's all about you out there who's listening right now, because people can help you to steer into the right direction. But if you're a car without an engine, the steering wheel is basically pointless, right? You can steer if someone is pushing, right? But no one is. And it's not my job to push a car while you don't know where to steer. This doesn't make sense at all. So get an engine. And that is not that hard. To be honest, that is really not that hard. And just to have some, sometimes I need to do these things. It's like, I don't know. Okay, we're getting closer to an end. So Sarah is now giving very interesting, I read them quickly out loud, because Sarah says, wow, that's a powerful statement. AI no benefit. I feel it frees us to be more creative. This is a great conversation to dive into. So interesting. I never was this is my job or home life type. It's like my early self was waiting for today's world. I see so much of that too. They can yet differentiate their convictions from those of their family and society. And I wonder if neurodivergence is evolution, and those that are neurodivergent are more prepared for the world of today. My mind is sparking. What do you think about the last one, which is displayed right now? Neurodivergence and the new age of fast-paced world.
Well, I will start by saying I'm not in this field, right? So I can do guesswork or give opinions that are my own and not studied in any way. I don't necessarily focus on this in my coaching, or this target audience, I mean. I've worked with people that have been diagnosed with ADHD, and we coaching. Of course, they wanted to do something or change something, and that's the the spark, right? The beginning that makes a difference. It can be that we're discovering, or we have the tools to discover different aspects, again, of this continuum about like neurodiverse, neurodiverse. We're all neurodiverse. Neurodivergent. I don't know what's the regular term for people who don't have any struggles or issues. So we might have more tools available to us to discover and diagnose, let's say. And also there might be the influence of, again, what you said, the fast-moving, the fast-paced world, the fast-moving world that we live in, that can have an impact on us as a society. What I don't really is when I hear people using these terms to self-diagnose, when they say, oh, I can't really do something, and then I do something else, and then I don't close that first task, and else, and so on. I have ADHD. Well, now, from that, right? Because we have all this information online that can be fed to us in a reel or in a blurb, the stuff that I'm doing with saboteurs. When I said to do those videos, I said, this is not like a one size fits all. This is not the entire truth, and you're more than your saboteurs, because that's just like one piece of the puzzle. And we have other valences, other aspects of ourselves that can be constructed, that can be developed, that can be changed, and so forth. And even if you look at comparing and contrasting terms, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, saboteurs, that are common, but we have different words to express them. So that's kind of where I stand. Let's not self-diagnose, or more specifically with these like ADHD and other neurodivergent aspects more on the spectrum. Go to a professional and make sure that it's there or it's not before starting, get, I don't know, treatment or work on it to be better, let's say. And not assume we have just because we saw something online. I think that does us more harm than good.
I think that, so when you aren't able to close tabs in your mind, you start to think about a lot of things. You are very prone to the shiny object syndrome, and you are very prone as well to be overwhelmed by your own thoughts. I see that in my surrounding. There are a lot of children, especially with ADHD surrounding. My son is very, very much like that as well. And you see that you need specific techniques to actually get them out of there. And some are very different than others. Some are combined with autism as well, and that becomes very, let's say, I don't think that combinations really help you, because it's very intense to get them focused on something. So the main thing is the main thing isn't the thing for them. It's like the next shiny thing, and that's the way how you actually help regulate them. It's like giving them something where they react to, you get them out of a loop again. And that's a very strange thing, especially for children. So I was doing a lot with that with adults, but totally different story. Adults have more self-control, no matter how adult they are. Children doesn't have that. And especially the digital age seems to, or the digital screen time seems to invoke the neuroid stronger, so it seems to magnify it ways, because there's more information just to have wooden bricks to play with, right? So you have so many informations going on, informations of yesterday, the informations of videos in the morning, so many fast-paced short videos instead of one Smurf
Yeah.
episode after the next one, right? It's especially old trick films were like very slow paced, easy to digest, more like typical storytelling things. And today it's grabbing attention. It is cliffhangers, even for kids, right? So there is a trigger for that, and I think this is the reason why we see more and more people who seems to have at least a tendency to ADHD, right? And the only way for let's don't say ADHD. So the people who have problems closing tabs in their heads, that is a lot of people, especially in the tech world, right? I think these kind of people definitely need to work on self-discipline. That is, if you don't do that, the entire brain power you have running is just a waste, because you just run in random ways, because nothing comes out of it. The only thing is noise. With the noise comes fog in your brain, and you lose your signals, and you become stall. Stall is, progress doesn't equal happiness anymore in that. And in my opinion, you need to have self-discipline and use that energy to actually focus that, no matter if you have ADHD or not. So it's the same thing for everyone, but that actually is the thing you need to focus. And in my opinion, I wouldn't say that I'm an ADHD, I'm an autism person, I'm this and that. I would say focus. So what do you want to be, and work towards that. This is actually what I want to say about that. So for example, if I want to lose weight, I work like I have that weight already, right? And work towards that, instead of saying an artificial goal or talking about all my problems I have right now. So I was losing a lot of weight. So the point is that I need to put myself into the state that I am my target person, that I understand the pattern towards I need to go to, and then walk towards that every day to become that, right? So I need to eat like that, I need to make sport like that, and I need to work like that I would be able to continue when I reached my goal like that. And this is the very same. So if you feel like a neurodivergent person, you have a lot of thoughts open, I think it makes most sense to say, I don't want to be a person with absolutely no power over their own mind. I want to be a person with power over their own mind, right? So I can become a good contributor to society, get all the, let's say, brain power I have, which might be a little bit more than the normal person, but it distracts me very often. So it's a problem with distraction, actually. So if I can get the distraction together, I can use that as an advantage. If not, I have a disadvantage. That's a little bit like the typical HD person is forced to do something. Otherwise, it's a negative thing. That's the actual only thing. But I think that's a non-ADHD person can achieve the same things. It is the same way. We need to define who we want to be and work towards that. And that is more a matter of self-discipline, of the controlled mind, not the lower self. The lower self is where ADHD actually comes from, the things, and the higher self is what controls it. And if you don't have a higher self, no matter what kind of person you are, you won't make your life or be able to steer the life into the direction you need to be, right? That is not scientific, as you said. It's not scientific. That's my personal opinion, but I know it from myself that it actually works. So I'm confident talking about that this way. I actually need to get to an end. We have 2 minutes left. That was a great conversation, and I'm so happy that we did this today. And
same here.
Good. Sarah, in the audience, and all the others, thank you so much. We had a lot of people on YouTube today. That was interesting. Substack a little bit. LinkedIn was good. And I'm really looking forward to having that as a real podcast and clips. And we will talk about that probably in the coming weeks on LinkedIn and discuss that topic in detail per topic further. Thank you so much, Diana, for being with me on that show and giving us that wonderful insight about your work and how you actually help people. Do you have anything else you want to share with the world, and how can people actually reach out to you?
First off, thank you for the invite. it was about these topics, and sure, we can even do separate conversations on each of them. This was like a combination of more than one. I enjoyed our conversation a lot, and people can find me on LinkedIn. I'm there almost every day. Sometimes I take weekends off, but I'm posting, interacting with people, messaging back and forth. And on my website, which is 𝘮𝑎𝑛𝑎Enache.com, it's my name. That's people can connect with me on LinkedIn. They'll get their make their way to my website as well. And my message, the message that I leave this conversation with, is an encouragement for people to seek guidance, help, so before they reach that, bottom, the one that we started to discuss initially. When they see patterns emerging in there, or when they want to obtain something that they're really determined to obtain, and maybe they don't know how to get there, be a very good place to get someone on board with you, a mentor. And if it's tougher than that, then yeah, psychotherapy tool for people. So get support is my message for people, because there's so many options, and there's a range of specialists that we can choose from. So we don't need to do all these things by ourselves on our own. I will say that message over and over again. I've said it before, I'm saying it now, I'm going to say it in the future as well, just to create awareness or help create that there are other ways as well. That's my final message for today.
Wonderfully said. And it is like that.
Thank you.
Get help, stay help, and help others. So, use the help of others to be able to help others then again. So reciprocity principle. And the debate never ends. So my last word today is, as a Stoic, the term Stoic or Stoicism comes or stems from the Stoa, which is a place in Greek. And this is where the people come together, and we're doing this practical philosophy, debates, ideas. They were challenging each other. There was a facilitator and there were debates. So they were open-minded, and they would try to improve during their sessions. And, you don't stop. On some point, you need to start to get into it, find help, right? Think about where I am right now, get into help and level up. And you end up, if you're doing it right, in those debates with your colleagues, with your buddies, with your mentor, and with your coach. Because those debates, because we're social beings, are important for our personal growth and self-discipline, right? If we don't have a mirror, we will start to lie to ourselves. If we do it every time just with ourselves, we will start lying at ourselves. This is how we work. And that's the reason why other people need to be there, in order to mirror you and say nothing to yourself right now. And you say no, and okay, you're right. Right? Exactly like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Challenge is,
thanks a lot.
Good.
It is.
My pleasure.
So thanks to everyone.
Adrian.
Thanks. And see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.